You walk into the room and instantly know something's wrong. Not because anyone said anything, not because of obvious tension, but because you feel the undercurrent, the forced smile that doesn't reach her eyes, the way he's standing just a little too rigid, the nervous energy bouncing off the walls that everyone else seems oblivious to. You haven't even taken off your coat, and you already know someone's lying about something important. Someone's pretending everything's fine when it's not. And in about 30 seconds, they're going to turn to you with that specific look. The one that says you're the problem for noticing what they're desperately trying to hide. This happens to you everywhere. At family gatherings where you sense the resentment beneath the pleasantries. At work meetings where you feel the real agenda hiding behind corporate speak. In relationships where you know they're pulling away weeks before they admit it. You see the games. You feel the masks. You know what's really happening while everyone else plays along. And here's the pattern that's destroying you. The more clearly you see, the more they hate you for it. Not because you call them out. You learned to stop doing that years ago. But because your very presence makes their games visible. Your awareness is a mirror they can't bear to look into. You are not paranoid. You are not overthinking. You are one of the rare few who sees through the collective performance. And that gift, that curse, that burden you carry, it makes you dangerous to everyone still wearing masks. Carl Jung discovered this phenomenon in his most disturbing cases. He called it the problem of superior perception. He wrote, "When one sees clearly what others cannot or will not see, one becomes a mirror that society cannot bear to look into." He found that roughly 1% of the population possesses what he termed differentiated intuitive function. The ability to perceive the unconscious patterns others desperately hide from. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to map the exact psychology of why your perception triggers such hatred, why your gift of sight makes you a target, and most importantly, how to survive in a world that needs you to see clearly, but punishes you for that very clarity. The first sign appeared early, didn't it? Maybe you were 7, maybe 10, but you remember the moment. An adult was lying, and you knew it. Not because you had proof, because your body told you. That twist in your stomach, that sudden alertness, that inexplicable knowing that what they were saying and what was true were two completely different things. You looked around the room. Everyone else was nodding, accepting, playing along, and you realized with a child's horror, I'm the only one who knows. From that moment, your life split in two. There was the surface world, where everyone pretended, performed, and played their roles. And there was the real world you could see underneath. The anger beneath the smile, the fear beneath the confidence. The desperate need beneath the indifference. Jung documented this exact phenomenon in his clinical notes. Patients he called introverted intuitives who possessed, in his words, consciousness so advanced it had become socially dangerous. These individuals didn't just observe behavior. They absorbed the entire unconscious atmosphere of their environment. They felt what others refused to feel. They saw what others couldn't bear to see. But here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. This isn't a skill you developed. It's not something you learned. It's how your brain is wired. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited. Your neural pathways process microexpressions, vocal fluctuations, and energetic shifts at a speed and depth that bypasses conscious thought. While others are listening to words, you're reading the entire unconscious transmission. While they're seeing masks, you're seeing faces. You've probably tried to turn it off, to not see, to not know, to just be normal and take things at face value like everyone else seems to do. But you can't, can you? Because this isn't a choice. It's your neurology. It's your nature. It's who you are at the cellular level. Now here's where it gets dark. Really dark. Your perception doesn't just reveal truth. It threatens entire psychological ecosystems. Every group, every family, every workplace operates on what Jung called collective unconscious agreements. Unspoken contracts about what we'll pretend not to see. What we'll collectively ignore. What shadows we'll all agree don't exist. You break those agreements just by existing. Think about the last time you walked into a room and the conversation suddenly shifted. That wasn't coincidence. That was the collective unconscious recognizing a threat. Not a conscious threat. They don't think, this person is dangerous. They feel it in their bones, in their nervous systems, in that primitive part of the brain that recognizes predators. Except you're not the predator. You're the witness. And in a world built on hidden shame, secret resentments, and carefully managed facades, the witness is the most dangerous person in the room, Jung wrote. The bearer of superior perception becomes the repository for all that the group cannot consciously acknowledge about itself. Translation: you become the scapegoat for their shadows. When you sense someone's hidden depression, they'll call you negative. When you feel their suppressed anger, they'll say you're creating conflict. When you see through their performance, they'll insist you're the one with problems. Not because they're consciously gaslighting you, because your perception literally threatens their psychological survival. The ego cannot tolerate being seen when it's not ready to see itself. This is where Jung's work becomes prophetic. He discovered that when someone's shadow gets reflected back through another person's clear perception, the unconscious mind has only two choices: integrate the shadow or attack the mirror. Guess which one most people choose? They attack you, not with fists, with something far more insidious. They project onto you everything they refuse to see in themselves. Their dishonesty becomes your untrustworthiness. Their manipulation becomes your game playing. Their hatred becomes your negativity. And here's the truly sinister part. They believe it. Completely. Absolutely. With the conviction of someone whose psychological survival depends on it. Because it does. Jung documented case after case where shadow projectors destroyed reputations, relationships, and entire social networks simply by spreading their unconscious projections with absolute certainty. They create what modern psychology calls reality distortion fields. They don't just see you incorrectly. They convince others to see you through their distorted lens. Suddenly, you're not the person who sees clearly. You're the troublemaker, the oversensitive one, the one who reads too much into things, the one who can't just let things be. The problem. Watch how quickly this happens. You gently point out an inconsistency, and suddenly you're attacking them. You express concern about an obvious problem, and you're being negative. You maintain boundaries, and you're cold or selfish. You see through their game, and you're the one playing games. Every strength you have gets reframed as a flaw. Every gift becomes a weapon they claim you're using against them. Here's what no one tells you about having rare perception. It's profoundly lonely. Not because you're alone. Because you're surrounded by people you can't really connect with. How do you have a real conversation with someone who's performing? How do you build intimacy with someone who won't acknowledge their own emotions? How do you trust someone who doesn't even know they're lying? You can't. So you exist in this strange liminal space, present but not really there, engaged but not really connected, surrounded but fundamentally alone. Jung called this psychic isolation, the separation that occurs when your consciousness evolves beyond the collective frequency. You're like someone who can see color in a world where everyone else sees black and white. How do you explain red to someone who's never seen it? How do you describe what you perceive to someone whose perception doesn't include that dimension? You don't. You learn to translate, to dilute, to pretend you don't see what you see just to maintain some semblance of connection. But that's not real connection, is it? It's another performance, another mask, except this time, you're the one wearing it. And this is the trap that breaks so many sensitive perceivers. You start doubting your own perception. Maybe they're right. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you are reading too much into things. Maybe you are the problem. Stop. Right now, stop. Your perception is not the problem. Your sight is not the issue. Your awareness is not a flaw. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss. The people who hate your perception the most are the ones who need it the most. They're drawn to you. Have you noticed? The very people who attack your sensitivity seek you out. They come to you in crisis. They tell you their secrets. They unconsciously recognize that you can see what they need to see, but can't bear to look at. This creates a psychological dance that Jung called the projection-integration cycle. They project their shadow onto you, attack you for reflecting it, then unconsciously seek you out to help them integrate it. Over and over, round and round. An endless cycle of approach and attack that leaves you exhausted and confused. You become their therapist, their confessor, their emergency contact when the masks finally slip. But the moment they stabilize, the moment the crisis passes, you become the enemy again, the one who knows too much, the one who saw them naked, the one who must be discredited or destroyed. This isn't personal, this is psychological. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the parts of themselves you reflect. They're not attacking you. They're attacking their own shadows you make visible. But understanding this doesn't make it hurt less, does it? Because you're still human. You still need connection. You still long for someone who can meet you in the depths instead of running from them. So how do you survive with this level of perception? How do you protect yourself without closing down? How do you stay open without being destroyed? Jung spent decades developing what he called conscious boundary management. Not walls that keep everything out. Not masks that hide your true nature. But conscious, deliberate choices about how and when to engage your full perception. First, stop trying to convince anyone of what you see. The unconscious cannot be argued with. Shadow projectors are immune to evidence. The more you try to prove your perception, the more threatening you become. Let them see you as wrong if that's what they need. Your truth doesn't require their validation. Second, create energetic distance without physical separation. You can be in the room without being in the drama. You can witness without absorbing. You can see clearly without taking on what you see. This isn't detachment. It's differentiation. Third, find your fellow seers. They exist. 1% of the population might seem small, but that's millions of people worldwide who see like you see, feel like you feel, know like you know. Stop trying to connect with those who can't meet you in the depths. Start seeking those who already live there. Fourth, use your perception strategically, not compulsively. Just because you can see doesn't mean you have to look. Just because you know doesn't mean you have to acknowledge. Your perception is a tool, not a burden. Use it when it serves you. Rest it when it doesn't. Fifth, honor the shadow work you trigger in others without taking responsibility for it. You are not responsible for their projections. You are not obligated to hold their shadows. You are not required to be their mirror. Your presence might catalyze their growth, but their growth is not your project. Here's what Jung discovered near the end of his life, something he barely wrote about because he knew how dangerous it was. Those with differentiated perception aren't just victims of projection. They're evolutionary catalysts. Your ability to see through games doesn't just threaten the unconscious. It accelerates consciousness. Your perception doesn't just reveal shadows. It forces integration. Your presence doesn't just disturb comfort. It catalyzes transformation. You are not broken. You are breaking others open, not through intention, through existence. Through the simple act of seeing clearly in a world addicted to blindness. This is why they hate you. Not because you're wrong, because you're right. Not because you're weak, because you're powerful. Not because you're too sensitive, because your sensitivity reveals their numbness. The collective unconscious recognizes you as what Jung called a light bringer, someone whose very presence illuminates what others spend their entire lives avoiding. And just like in every myth, every story, every spiritual tradition, the Lightbringer is first crucified before being recognized as necessary. But you're not here to be crucified. You're here to be sovereign, to own your perception without apology, to trust your knowing without justification, to be fully, unapologetically, radiantly aware. So here's your choice, the only choice that matters. Will you dim your light to make others comfortable in their darkness? Or will you shine with the full intensity of your perception, knowing that those who can't bear your brightness will remove themselves from your life? Will you keep apologizing for seeing what others miss? Or will you recognize your perception as the gift it's always been? Will you continue letting their projections define you? Or will you stand sovereign in your knowing, untouchable by their shadows? Jung's final words on perception were this: the individual who sees clearly has a responsibility not to the collective comfort, but to the truth itself. For in a world of shadows, the one who sees light doesn't just have vision. They have a mission. Your mission isn't to make anyone see what you see. Your mission isn't to wake anyone up. Your mission isn't to heal anyone's shadows or integrate anyone's projections. Your mission is to see clearly, live truthfully, and let your very existence be proof that consciousness is possible. The games will continue. The masks will remain. The projections will persist. But you'll see through all of it. Not with judgment, not with superiority, but with the quiet, unshakable knowing that comes from being awake in a sleeping world. They hate you for your perception because your perception is power. The power to see, the power to know, the power to be free from the collective trance. Own that power, because the world doesn't need more people who pretend not to see. The world needs more people brave enough to see clearly, even when that clarity makes them a target, especially when that clarity makes them a target. Write in the comments, my perception is not a curse, it's my power. Let's see who's ready to stop apologizing for seeing through the games.